fateful day, Akona walked into the kitchen while Akudo was cooking, and she asked Akudo to serve her dinner. Akudo was speechless, and she confronted Akona about her attitude and bad behavior towards her. Akona slapped Akudo and poured a pot of hot soup on her face. Akudo was depressed and cried uncontrollably. Akona rushed to the palace and reported what happened to the king, turning the story upside down in her favor. The king was not happy about what happened, and he didn't bother to ask Akudo what happened. Once upon a time, in the village of Ezakere, there lived a wealthy and a hard-working man named Ezudo. Ezudo is the only son of his parents. His father was a great farmer, but he's late. He acquired a lot of lands and properties. Ezudo continued from where his father stopped, working tirelessly to maintain and sustain all the father left behind. Years later, Ezudo decided to take a wife from the neighboring village, Umorie. His king's men accompanied him for the bride price and traditional rites. Ezudo was happy. Finally, he's going to settle down with Udoka. Udoka was hardworking, respectful, and well-mannered. Everybody in the village adored her strength. Udoka had a small shop in the market square where she braids people's hair with the help of her sister Akonna. She's so talented and gifted in her hair braiding. Akuna and Akudo are from the same village but different parents. They are best of friends. Many years later, Ezudo and Akudo were blessed with 3 children, and they are all male. Ezudo's business expanded. He had a large farm where he reared fowls, pigs, and fish. He also owned a farm where they cultivate corn, fruits, and vegetables with the help of his children and workers. The business flourished and yielded enough revenue. Ezudo employed so many workers in his farm, including Akonna, Akudo's sister, and they were all hardworking. He has a big house where he rented out to people and collects revenue from them yearly. Many people are living in his house. Ogonna was one of his tenants. Ogonna is a transporter and he also owns a shop where he amends people's shoes. Ogonna saw Akonna, Akudo's sister, and loved her. Not long, he paid her bride price and Akonna packed out from Akudo's house and started living with Ogonna, his newfound love. Not long after their wedding, Akonna stopped working for Ezudo. His husband, Ogonna, opened a big shop for her in the market square, where she sells frozen chicken and fish. Her business was doing well and they were all living happily as one family. Akonna will always visit Akudo, her sister, every Sunday with her children to spend a little time with her and the family. One day, Ogonna set out to the nearest city for his transportation business. Eventually, he had an accident that took away his life, leaving Akonna and the 3 children aside. 2 years after mourning her husband, things became very difficult for Akonna. Her shop wasn't doing well again because there is no money to fund it. Akudo was source of help to her sister, helping her to raise the children and providing little needs for them to make things easy for her sister Akonna. They were still living in Ezudo's house, and Akudo begged his husband to stop collecting rent from her sister, since she's no longer getting funds like before, and she's left alone with 3 children to provide for. However, things became extremely difficult for Akonna. She decided to start working in Ezudo's farm again. She went to Ezudo's farm to look for employment. Luckily, she got an employment and started working to earn a living. Meanwhile, they are still living in Ezudo's house and he no longer takes yearly revenue from her because of her status, and Akudo have pleaded on her behalf. One day, the village elders decided to pick someone who is hardworking and crown him the king. They decided that Ezudo was qualified for the kingship because of his wealth and generosity. They crowned him the king. His family and everybody around him was very happy. A year after the coronation, Ezudo's attitude began to change towards his family. He started going close to Akonna, the widow that worked in his farm, and also his tenants. As time goes on, he fell deeply in love with the widow. He went and paid for her bride price and asked her to pack into his own apartment without considering how her first wife, Akudo, will feel. Akudo was confused and in pain. She couldn't bear it. She went to Umoria and reported the case to the Omada, how her sister and a friend took away his husband from her. One fateful day, the Umada gathered with anger, and they were all holding green leaves, expressing their anger. They went into the palace and demanded to know why the king has to take his wife's sister as a second wife. The king welcomed them and told them that he owes them no explanation, that he has the right to marry as many wives as he wants. The Umada left in anger. Akuna began to show her real character. She stopped doing house jobs and stopped working in the farm. Her name now changed to Oriako Ezudo. She will sit in the palace like one who doesn't have a job, leaving Akudo, the first wife, to do the cooking and washing alone. She speaks rudely to Akudo and treats her children like slaves. One fateful day, Akuna walked into the kitchen while Akudo was cooking, and she asked Akudo to serve her dinner. Akudo was speechless, and she confronted Akuna about her attitude and bad behavior towards her. Akuna slapped Akudo and poured a pot of hot soup on her face. Akudo was depressed and cried uncontrollably. Akuna rushed to the palace and reported what happened to the king, turning the story upside down in her favor. The king was not happy about what happened, and he didn't bother to ask Akudo what happened. After 6 months, Ezudo returned Akudo's bride price and asked his first wife Akudo to pack out, that he's no longer interested in the marriage. Akudo packed all her belongings with her 3 kids and went back to her father's house, while Akuna stayed back to enjoy the royal home and all the benefits with her children. She didn't born any child for the king, Ezudo. They are still living together till death, while Akudo stayed back in her parents' house, raising her children alone without the help from his husband, Ezudo. Akudo's hairdressing shop till death is doing perfectly well, and she expanded her business to enable her to generate enough revenue to train her children. As for Akuna, her late husband's family came and took away her children from her since she has decided to remarry. The villagers are still in shock and surprised till today about the king's action, and everyone is waiting to see what will happen at last, because he has a lot of properties and lands. And the second wife, Akuna, till death, didn't born any child for the king. They are still living happily as husband and wife till today.